Welcome to Real Judaism with Rabbi Klapper. Unfiltered wisdom for Jewish life.
Ezrat Hashem, we are here, Chelek Gimel. Welcome back, everybody. Chelek Gimel, Perek Tezayin, Chiluk Zmanim B'Shabbos. This is a long perek. It's a very long perek, actually. And it also is very deep. It's a very, very deep perek, and it's a lot of Kabbalah in it. So we're going to do our best in order to understand it as best as we can. And Rabbi Pinkus is going to go through the times of Shabbos to explain how the kedushah of Shabbos actually elevates. Every stage of Shabbos, the kedushah actually gets bigger and bigger and bigger as it goes along. Now, we are not, maybe you are, but I'm not a person who, understands all of Kabbalah. And some of these ideas are a little bit esoteric, a little bit out there, and we're going to try our best to understand what's going on. Okay, here we go. Certainly, the kedusha of Shabbos begins immediately, right? Immediately. Whenever that is, I say whenever that is because even though we say lahalacha l'maisa, there should be till sefer Shabbos, a person should definitely not wait to the last minute before stopping to do malacha, which unfortunately is a very sad thing that you see people driving to shul. They're driving to shul, and you're looking at your watch, and it is very, very, very close to shkia, very close, seconds, right? And who says your watch is exactly right, right? So it actually happened to me many, many years ago that I was in Manhattan and I came back to the place where I parked my car and the car was gone. I thought the car was stolen. Turns out it wasn't stolen, it was towed. Why? Because there was a sign that said parking until 11 o'clock. And the car was towed at 11 o'clock. At 11 o'clock it was towed. I got back, I don't remember even when I saw the sign, but I got back a few minutes later and the car was gone. And we fought it. My father went into court and he says, it says on the ticket 11 o'clock. And they towed it, they put the ticket on and they towed it right away. So he said to the judge, what time do you have? So whatever time it was, it's 3 o'clock. It's well, I actually have 3:03. How can you be so exact in the time that, boom, the minute that it turns it, you already towed the car away? How do you know the guy doesn't turn the corner in the next 30 seconds and his car is gone and you did it a minute early? How do you know? And with that, we fought the ticket and we won. I don't know, we got the money back for the towing also, but the exact second, you really know when Shabbos starts, you really know exactly when Shkia is, it's dangerous. It's a dangerous thing because the kedushah of Shabbos begins immediately. Now, there's Beis HaMikdash also. Is Beis HaMikdash really after Shkia? Is it really Shabbos? When does Shabbos start? So we say Shkia. Well, we really say more than that. You really should add Tosefes Shabbos. You should have a few minutes before Shabbos. How much is a few minutes before Shabbos? Everybody can ask their own Rav. But it should be a few minutes at least. 5, 6, 7 minutes. Maybe some will say less. Maybe some will say more. The Maisa, Shabbos starts and comes in right away. A person who does malacha with Eidim and Asrad, the kedushah of Shabbos, or the chiyuv, that's the nafkamina that we could point to and say the penalty for being mechal Shabbos is skila, and that begins immediately. And it doesn't begin until sefer Shabbos because we added to Shabbos. That wasn't Shabbos itself, which is why also Allah at least lechatchila, if a person makes early Shabbos, they should try after Tzeis to also have a kazayas of bread at that point because that's for sure, definitely Shabbos and not Tosefes Shabbos. But Shabbos starts, the kedusha, immediate. And like we said, what happens when Shabbos starts? Hashem comes in. Hashem's right here. Boom. It's almost like a shock. You're going from 0 to 100 to 1,000 to 1,000,000 to 1,000,000,000 in a second. Not even a second. So yeah, for sure, the kedusha starts. Beis HaMikdash, the whole world turns into the Beis HaMikdash, like we discussed many times in the past. And now there's Hasharas Shechinah. The Shechinah is here. Shechinah is here just like it's in the Beis HaMikdash. Mikom makom limudenu raboseinu hakadmoinim she'en kol shos Shabbos. Even so, The Kadmonim, the previous generations of Gedolim have taught us that there are still levels of kedushah on Shabbos itself, even though the din of skila or chayiv chatos is the same throughout Shabbos, but there are still levels of kedushah that grow throughout Shabbos. Shabbos mosipa v'holeches. It grows, it gets bigger. Mikedusha lekedusha, ma'aliyah le'aliyah. And this is what we're going to be talking about in this parak. Chelkei Shabbos heim shloisha. There are 3 parts to Shabbos. Leil Shabbos Kodesh, first the night of Shabbos, then Yom Shabbos, and then Mincha shel Shabbos. Once you get past, I guess, Mincha Gedolah. והשבס מיוחדת בזה ששלוש התפילות שבשלוש הזמנים נזכרים נדלים תוכניהם זה מזה. And this is what we've discussed in the past, that the 3 tefillas, besides for Musaf is its own thing, because Musaf is by every holiday, like we just had Pesach, has their own Musaf, so Shabbos also has Musaf, but Shabbos is different than any other day of the year, because all 3 tefillas, Shacharis, Mincha, and Mariv, or Mariv, Shacharis, and Mincha, are all different. They all have their own theme to them. And we've discussed this in the past. Different than any other day. Bein Yom Chom, Bein Yom Kodesh, regardless if it's a weekday or it's another, or one of the Yomim Tovim. Shekal Tapuchin Shabbos Hein Benusach. And all those other days, like we just had on Pesach, the 3 tefillas, the Yontif, on Yontif day of Pesach, are all the same. Unless it falls out to be on Shabbos, in which case you have to add Shabbos. But besides for that, all 3 tefillas are the same. And even if you do add Shabbos, still all 3 are the same. It's just all 3 are Shabbos. The days of the week are the days of the world, of this world. The Yom Tovim are bringing kedushah into the weekday, into this world, into Olam HaZeh, right? The Yom Tovim that we have are saying we have a certain day. It's a Tuesday, it's a Monday, and there's now kedushah on that Tuesday or that Monday. So we're bringing kedushah into the weekday. We're bringing kedushah into this world. That's what's happening on the Yom Tovim. When we're talking about Olam HaZeh, this world, it's all the same thing. It's all the Yemois Olam. It's all the days of the world. Don't change. They don't change from depending on the time. We can bring kedusha into the world, but it's still in the world. We're still here in the world. Masha ein kein Olam HaBa. What's different about Shabbos is that Shabbos is Olam HaBa. She'enu zman echad shoveh. It's not one equal time. Ela yesh bo zmanim mizmanim shoinim. Kegoin ha'alef hashvi, ha'elef hashvi, ha'elef hashmini, ve'elef hashi. Again, these are very deep ideas. We don't really know what it is, but we're now in the year 5785. Right? We're in the 6th millennium. But what's going to be in the 7th millennium and the 8th millennium and the 9th millennium? What is that? What's going to be then? Right? There are going to be elevations. When Mashiach comes, depending on many different shitas, what exactly Mashiach will bring when he comes. But there are going to be elevations when Mashiach comes and after Mashiach comes. And there's going to be continued elevations. At what point does a person no longer have bechira? Like when a person dies, you lose bechira. You're now in Olam HaEmes. You can't do mitzvahs anymore. You don't have that test of the Yetzer Hara anymore. But yet there's still going to be elevations at that time. A person earns it in this world, will reap it in the next world. But there will be certain elevations. Again, I'm not an expert in these things, but you see that he was, and there are going to be elevations depending. You're in the 7th millennium and the 8th millennium and the 9th millennium. Kanuda Eitzel Gedolim Ukubolim, like was well known by the great Kabbalists. James Manim Ashonim Zemi Zelegamre. And we're talking about Olam HaBa. We're talking about the next world. There are going to be different levels. Kain b'Shabbos, Kain Shabbos Kodesh. That's the same way by Shabbos. He may Ein Olam HaBa. Shabbos is like Olam HaBa. right? Shabbos is not we're bringing kedushah into Olam HaZeh. Shabbos is we're in Olam HaBa. It's a different bechina. The fact that we can't experience and we discussed about in the past, but that's what it is. We can try to, as much as we can, to tap into it more, and we'll be able to. It's a different world. Yesh ba kama sugyot chaluka shel zmani kodesh zeh shoyne mizeh betachlis hashinui. Because Shabbos is like Olam HaBa, so each level, each time in Shabbos has its own specific and uniqueness to its kedushah, and there's an elevation in each one. We should try to explain these ideas to the best of our abilities to understand what's going on. To in detail to explain what is the tosefet, what is being added. Kasher Shabbos mosifa lalos mikdusha lekdusha mi madrega madrega. When Shabbos is moving up madregas, we should realize also that as Shabbos moves up madregas, actually it could be that there's more of a nisayon. Because of the level of kedusha, it makes it harder. Maybe Yetzer Hara doesn't want a person to experience these levels of kedusha. Yetzer Hara doesn't want that. So it could be that he'll make it harder. It could be that Friday night a person has the biggest feeling of wow, Shabbos came in. And the truth of the matter is, it's a big boom. You know what it's very similar to? It's very similar to a Baal Tshuva. A Baal Tshuva who starts off with nothing. The first time he keeps Shabbos, it's a big boom. Right? And the first time he starts learning Torah, and every single thing is so exciting, it's so big, it's so amazing. Now, after being a Baal Tshuva for a little while, and he gets used to it, and he's doing it, and he's almost like, could be many years past, you see him in the shul, you wouldn't even know that he's a Baal Tshuva. You wouldn't even know. He looks just like everybody else, does the same thing as everybody else. And he sits down and he learns. Is that learning any less than was before, when he first became a Baal Tshuva? Certainly not. If anything, it could be better. Because when he was first becoming a Baal Tshuva, how much was he able to learn? Now, after so many years, he can actually learn better. But you don't have that big boom. The mashal is like a diamond. A diamond, when you go from like 0, 0.0001 carats, is like not even like a diamond. And then it goes up to a half a carat. Wow, that's huge. That's like a 500% increase, right? That's incredible. So you see a huge difference. But when you go from a half a carat to 3/4 of a carat, which is a much lower amount, it's a 50% increase, not a 500% increase, but the value goes up much more. And if you go from 3/4 of a carat to a carat, it goes up much more. And every even little bit after that, even just a little 1.1, 1.15, every little bit, but it exponentially gets bigger, even though you don't have that big boom. So that's the same idea by Shabbos. Shabbos, in the very beginning of Shabbos, what do we have? Big boom. Wow. Big boom. But then those little increments as it goes up afterwards, maybe you don't feel, but it really is going up. And if it really is going up, so the Yetzer Hara doesn't want you to experience those things. So because of that, he makes it harder to experience it. Sometimes challah shudis, we get an inspiration, we're inspired, challah shudis, but not all the time. Not all the time challah shudis is super inspiring. Sometimes not. Friday night is hit. That's when it's inspiring, Friday night, right? That's when everybody's out, Shalom Zocher, and everybody's so wowed by Shabbos. Shabbos morning is a little bit more subdued, and then by Shabbos afternoon, everybody fell asleep already. So where'd the kedushah go? No, that's exactly the reason. The Yetzer Hara doesn't want you to get to higher levels of kedushah, and because of that, he wants to put more nisyonos. If he doesn't get it, doesn't mean that it's not true, though. Let's continue here. Mitoch dvaro. Mitoch divrei hakadmonim bir chilukei sudas Shabbos. Based on these levels, the kadmonim, the generations of Kabbalists of the past, explain that the different su'udas on Shabbos, the different meals on Shabbos, also represent these ideas. Nuchal lahavin ktsat et abdeli akdushas madrego shel Shabbos zu l'malam mizu. Through the different meals on Shabbos, the 3 different meals on Shabbos, we can experience, or we can understand at least so, the different madregas of Shabbos. Suda's Leil Shabbos, the Suda of the Friday night meal, Nikras Suda's de Chekal Tapuchin Kadishin. Right? There's a zemer that we don't know, but we have a bencher over here. But there's a zemer at the very beginning of the Suda that Askinu Sudasa. And in the beginning of Askin, there's actually Askinu Sudasa by all three meals, even though many only sing it by Shalashudas, but really it's by all three meals. And because it's in Aramaic, it's a little bit, a little bit foreign, it's a little bit out there. People don't necessarily understand what it means, and maybe that's why it's not such a popular thing to do, but it doesn't mean that it's not true, and it also reveals a lot about Shabbos. So this is what Pinkus is coming to explain, that the first meal, the meal of Leil Shabbos, is called the Suda de Chekal Tapuchin Kadishin. What does that mean? So this is what we're going to come and explain, Be'ez Hashem. The Suda's Yom Shabbos Nikras Suudasa Da'atika Kadisha. It's an old kedushah, right? What does that mean? Maybe even Asika is not the right translation for the word. But let's see as we go on. The Suda Shlishis Nikra Suda's Desir Anfin. It's called the Suda Desir Anfin. Da he Suda Desir Anfin. Right? That's how the tune goes by Shalashudas. Vadai Shahagdoras Elu Heim Soidois Visisrei Toyer Anistar Meitan. For sure, these are very, very, very deep ideas. These are very deep ideas, which we're going to try our best to understand. But because these words have already been publicized and they're available everywhere, so we're going to use this as a springboard in order to try to understand what this means. So here we have another few minutes. Let's start Aleph to understand what does it mean, the first Suda, which represents the night Leil Shabbos. Suda's Leil Shabbos Nikra is the night of Shabbos. The Suda is called, like we just said, Suda's de Chekal Tapuchin Kadishin. What does this mean? Habir bazeh al pi chochmas haKabbalah. To understand this, we have to understand a little bit about Kabbalah. Amok mi himself was very deep. Who can really understand it? Based on the little bit that we can understand. Chekal Tapuchin Kadishin, who echad me'ashemos v'ginuim shel midos malchus yisbarach. This name, Chekal Tapuchin Kadishin, is one of the nicknames of the midah of malchus. What is Chekel? Chekel hainu sodeh. Chekel is a field. Kvar hidbayer be'inyan hamalchus. When we're talking about malchus, dihi hamidah shemitzad atma ein la hagdaras toichen v'les le'migrama kulum. Malchus is in and of itself nothing. The concept of malchus is nothing. Real malchus is that it doesn't have anything of its own self, but rather it takes from everything else. The melech is one who is ma'ached everything. He takes all the people. This one does that, and that one does this. And everyone has their role to play, and he brings them all together, and he makes them one unified people, country, nation. But he himself is not necessarily adding anything to it. He's just uniting everything. So that's what we learned by Malchus. This is the midah that in and of itself doesn't really have anything. It's only to bring down all the koichos that are there, to be me'ache, to bring everything together, right? So the mashal that I was bringing was from a melech basar adam. But when we're talking about a melech of Yisrael, a king of Klal Yisrael, we want more. We want to be more than that. We want to bring the potential of the tremendous midos that are possible, bring it into reality. Kegoin, halavana haromezes ala malchus, like the moon, which is a symbol of malchus. Sheila atma eno or atmi, it itself does not have any light. Ela motzilo or et or hashemish, rather it reflects light from the sun, and that can give a tremendous amount of light. Right? The moon has a tremendous ability to light up the sky, not like the sun, obviously, but certainly when there's a full moon, there can definitely be much more light. We in the city don't experience this as much because we have lights in the street. But if you would go to a place where there isn't lights in the street and there would be a full moon, you could be able to see based on the light of the moon. We just don't have as much of experience. Also, would be the lights of the stars in those places. So to the land itself is also another way of saying malchus. The land itself doesn't have anything on its own. Rather, it's a place that brings out the hashpos that Hashem sends to it. Right? The land is the place where the seeds can grow, where the water can nourish, the rain can nourish the seeds and it can grow, but it itself doesn't have anything. The shefa comes down from Shemayim, the parnasa, chaim ubrias, for parnasa, for life, for health. If it wouldn't be a place for people to be, how could we bring to fruition the shefa that Hashem wants to send? That's why the word eretz is also a kinui, is also a name for malchus. Kimokain sodeh, and that's why sodeh is also a kinui lemalchus. It means that it's a piece of land. It can bring out the shefa, the seeds and the plant life and the food that is inherent in these seeds, but it needs a place, and that is the field. So that's the word chekel. Therefore, Midas Malchus Shamayim, because Shabbos is the seventh day, that is the midah of Malchus Shamayim. Sheba Shor Shechinah, Hainu Shechudu Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yoytze Umizgala Mikoyach HaPoyim. The oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu now can be brought out. It can go from the koyach, from the potential, into the actual. Lachein HaShabbos Nikris Sodeh Shenizru B'Soich HaZroim Shel Yichud Hashem. So Shabbos is called Sodeh, it's called Chekel. The reason is because Shabbos is doing the same thing as the field. Just like the field brings out the shefa that's inside of it, that it itself doesn't have it. It's the seeds that get planted and the water that comes to nourish those seeds. It's from the seeds, it's from the ground that shefa can come from, even though the ground itself doesn't have anything. Shabbos is the same way. Shabbos is just the gateway that the Kadosh Baruch Hu comes into the world, and now we can bring out all those koichos, all the amazing koichos of the Kadosh Baruch Hu we can bring into this world, because now this world is Olam HaBa. But Shabbos itself doesn't have anything on its own. Because the seeds of Yichud Hashem, of the belief of the oneness of Hashem, of that Hashem is everything, and He created Yesh Me'ayin and the Yesodis of emunah, that is brought out on Shabbos. Shabbos is the land. Shabbos is the fertile area that can grow from. Shabbos megadelos peiros kedushim, and therefore Shabbos can bring out the potential, the fruit of kedushah, and that's what it means. Chekal Tapuchin Kadishin, the field of apples, of fruit, of holy fruit. So Chekal Tapuchin Kadishin means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is using Shabbos as the land that's going to bring out the holy fruit. What is the holy fruit? The Yichud of Hashem, the oneness of Hashem, the all-powerfulness of Hashem, the infinite nature of Hashem. Where are we going to bring that out? Where are we going to actually see it? In Shabbos. And that's why the beginning of Shabbos is called Chekal Tapuchin Kadishin. V'mashal shel Tapuchin Apeiros. This idea of this mashal of Apeiros. Share Iker Hachaim Hativim Tuluyim B'Achila V'Shtia. Because we need food to live. A person doesn't have food, they'll die. You need to have food and drink. Food is what brings a person life in a natural way in this physical world. shel kedusha, b'tichas haseichel halev. There's physical food, which gives the person physical life, but there's also ruchnius food, which opens up a person's heart, opens up a person's levels to kedusha, and his mind to kedusha. Kigon hamon, eating the mon shevavur bekadmonim that the Kabbalists of previous generations brought. When a person ate mon, it just didn't only keep him alive. It made him more of a holy person. Oh, Be'er shel Miriam. The Be'er of Miriam was also Can you imagine such a thing? Imagine if there was a food that we could eat, and right after eating the food, I can understand the Tosfos. Right understanding the food, I can understand this feast of Pinkus. But that's what it was, because it wasn't just the food was keeping us alive physically. The food was opening up our minds and our hearts to kedushah. It's really an amazing thing. Really, we shouldn't be connected to kedushah. I saw an amazing thing. I just want to finish this. I'll finish this paragraph, but I'm going to take a second to tell you an amazing idea that I saw. It's an amazing idea. It says, Ner neshama, Ner Hashem, neshamas Adam. Right? It's a pasuk. It's part of the pasuk. Ner Hashem, neshamas Adam. The candle of Hashem is the neshama of a man. So we see that Ner, that's why when a person passes away, you light a candle. Because the candle represents the neshama of a person. Why is that? So it's a beautiful idea I saw on the sefer Ol Rochel. It says the reason is because what's a candle? A candle is there's some kind of chomer that you're burning. Something that you're burning. Some kind of, right? It could be wax, could be oil. And you're taking through fire, you're connecting something physical to something spiritual. There's light that's being given off. Light, the idea of or, I mean, we've seen it in this sefer also, but that's a spiritual thing. There's no, try to grab the fire, right? You probably burn yourself, but there's nothing to grab. There's something above. We're connecting the light to the chomer, to the physical thing, through a candle, through the ner. It says the same thing by the neshama of a person. The neshama of a person, any living being has a nefesh. Right? Animals, fish, birds, they have a nefesh. That gives them a certain amount of life. But the neshama of a Jew is way above that. And the neshama really can't connect to the goof. Can't. The neshama is something way above it. So how does it connect to the goof? HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes it and he connects it pili ploim to the goof. And really the neshama is the connection to Hashem. So just like the candle connects to something chomri, something gashmi, and it can create light, so too the neshama connects to the goof of a person and gives it spirituality. Really, spirituality wouldn't be able to be connected at all to physicality. It shouldn't. It's a pella that it does. The neshama can be connected. And that's why it's similar to a candle. That we're connecting light to something physical. So this idea is really a tremendous thing because physicality and spirituality really shouldn't be able to go together. But now we know that we can. We can bring spirituality out of physicality, and that's what Yahadus is based on. That's what Judaism is based on. And when the Kohanim eat from those karbonos in the Beis HaMikdash, they're actually filling themselves up with spirituality. When Klal Yisrael ate the man in the midbar, they ate food, but it made their eyes open. They can learn Torah. They can understand. Wow, there's something called Timtum Alev. Timtum Alev means that for up the hearts. It means your heart is clogged up. Your heart is clogged up. And I've heard many, many stories, even in these generations, when people eat foods that's not kosher, all of a sudden they don't have any more cheshek for ruchnius. Even if a person lowers their level of kashrus that they kept before, it makes them more dull to ruchnius. When a person elevates their level of kashrus, it actually gives them more of a she'ifa for ruchnius. My Rebbe told us a story years ago, and the story probably happened even years before that he had a boy in his class. I don't remember, he was teaching 8th grade, 7th grade, and he noticed that in the beginning of the year, this boy was doing very, very well. And then as the year was going by, he was getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And he was talking to the boy. And the boy understood also, he wasn't davening as well, he wasn't learning as well, and he didn't understand what was going on over here. So he asked the boy, let me ask you, are you taking snacks from the other boys in the class? Are you eating their snacks? So he looks at my Rebbe and he says, is the Rebbe a Navi? He said, Navi? How do you know I was doing that? So he said, I'm not a Navi, but I know your family. Your family has a very, very high level of kashrus. Not all the boys here in the class have the same level of kashrus that your family does. When you start eating things that are on a lower level of kashrus, it's going to bring you down. You're going to be lowered. And that's what happens. It could be very subtle. What do you mean? It's still kosher. It's still kosher, isn't it? Every level makes a difference. So the fact that we can bring spirituality out of physicality is an amazing thing. Is a tremendous thing. In the Midbar, they drank from the Be'er Miriam. And that opened their hearts and opened their eyes for Torah. They ate the mun. They ate incredible. All of a sudden, I want to learn Torah. And I understand Torah because I ate the mun. And that's what he says there. Somebody who drank from the Be'er Miriam, niftach libo b'Torah lo yishkach. He can learn Torah and he won't forget anything. Klum mimashal amad. He won't forget anything. Kain Shabbos kodesh. He sadish above elim peres kedushin. So too here, Shabbos is the ability to take the physicality in the world and bring out the fruits of kedushah. Shekal mistapek mehem umachnis as el kirbo peroser shalash Shabbos b'kedusha. That anybody who takes from the Shabbos can put into himself these fruits of the kedushah of Shabbos. Yichnus legufo brios v'koyach begashmias v'yiftach libo l'torah v'deveikus, and that will go into his heart, and he will change. He'll have much more deveikus to Hashem. And chas v'shalom works the opposite way. That's what timtum alev is. When a person eats something that's not kosher, is it the worst aveira in the world to eat something that's not kosher? No, it's not. It's not chilul Shabbos, which is skila. It's not any chiyuv misa. Eating something not kosher is a lav. There's a lav. It could be many lavim depending on how many kzesin you eat and what you eat, right? And learning makos now, and in makos it talks about eating bugs and how many different lavim a person's over and eating bugs. But lamais, it's a lav. It's malchus. Now, malchus is serious. I'm not saying it's not. But there's something tremendously serious about macholos asuras, about eating non-kosher food. And that's because that food becomes part of who you are. And because it becomes part of who you are, because it becomes part of your flesh, it's mitamte metalev. It stuffs up your heart. And now a person can't learn anymore. And now a person can't daven anymore. Why? Because their body itself is full of this tumah. The tumah, the ruchnius of tumah is now part of your vuf. Whereas the kedushah, which could have been there, is gone. There's tremendous things to say about this, but we'll have to stop it there. Wow.
Thank you for joining Real Judaism, where we explore Torah's wisdom for real life. Created by J Foundations and produced by Eli Podcast Productions. Find more episodes at realjudaism.org and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.